This week on Oasis by the Sea, Pastor Keith teaches Innocence and Truth from the book of John, chapter 18, verse 28, through chapter 19, verse 16.
Court stories. People seem to like court stories. I tried to research how many movies have been made about court stories. I was not successful. Nobody knew. Here's what I did find out. Here's an indication. Most of you have heard of IMDb? They're just a company that advertises movies and does reviews and stuff like that. They're fairly big on the internet. If you ever try to search for a movie on the internet, IMDb comes up pretty quickly. They made a list of the top court stories. You know how many had to be on the list to represent the top? 50. It took 50 court stories to represent the cream of the crop of the best of movie court stories. People seem to like the process of determining what is true and who is innocent. That intrigues us. We also like it if there's some kind of twist, right? Some sort of unexpected something that happens during the story, and we go, ooh. The Bible has some court cases in it. The biggest one is the trial of Jesus before his condemnation to death. And it has some twists in it. Consider this one. In Jesus' court case, as he approaches Pilate, which is what we're going to read today, the prosecution is not interested in justice, and the judge isn't going to be interested in justice, and not even the defendant is going to be interested in justice. That makes it a very strange court case indeed, where none of the people in the equation have any interest in justice. The Jewish legal authorities want Jesus dead, and they essentially skipped a trial altogether and went straight to judgment. They grabbed Jesus in the middle of the night. One of the accounts of the Gospels explains it in more detail than John does. They tried to get people to testify against Jesus. Here's the worst they could get anyone to say. He claimed that if you broke down the temple in 3 days, he'd rebuild it in 3 days. That's the worst they could get anyone to say. I don't even know what that means in a court. Like, how does that equate to any kind of crime? I claim I can rebuild something if you wreck it. Okay, lovely, go your way. That is all they could get anyone to say. Yet they convict him to death. But they have some problems in this conviction of death. Two, really, that I want to point out. Technically, one problem is that technically they're not allowed to deliver a death penalty because the Romans have control over them, and the Romans have said, you can't put somebody to death unless we say so. Now, I use the word technically because they don't care that much most of the time. They've already tried to kill Jesus more than once, and later, when Stephen comes along, they're going to stone him, and they're never going to ask the Romans any favors or any permission at all. But it is a technicality, and they're going to use that technicality because of their second problem. And their second problem is that Jesus is just too popular with some people. And they don't want the reputation, they don't want the blame from those people who love Jesus rabidly to be on them because they killed Jesus. And so they need the Romans to do it. This is actually going to come out really clearly in the text. Pilate's going to say, fine, you kill him. That's all the permission that they would possibly need. They can now go and stone him. They've got the legal, they won't do it. That demonstrates their need. They need the Romans to do it for their reputation to be intact, for their control. Their little plan doesn't work unless Rome kills Jesus. And so because of that, they held this kangaroo court in the middle of the night, and now first thing, just as dawn comes up, they're at the doorstep of Pilate, who's the Roman official in charge of the reason, to knock on his door and beg for an execution. That's where we're at. Our passage today covers this Roman trial. We end up with a drama with three players. The Jewish priests will play the part of the prosecution, and they hate Jesus. We have the Roman ruler Pilate, who loves Pilate. And we have Jesus, who loves truth. And each of these players is going to represent their motive throughout the drama. As I pointed out, none of them love justice. You might say Jesus loves justice, but there's some things Jesus loves more than justice, or I wouldn't be saved right now. If justice was his only goal, there'd be no grace for me. So, Jesus has passed up every chance to avoid this situation. He could have run. He knew it was coming. He multiple times said in advance, this is what's coming. So, he's there voluntarily, and he loves truth. Next slide. This drama, though, is still being played out to this day. And we're gonna wind this back together at the very end. I'm not going to talk about this all the way through, but as we go, maybe you'll see some tie-ins. There are still people today that hate Jesus. Most of them call themselves atheists, although we do have some people that are on the occult, some other small groups like that would say they hate Jesus. That would be the prosecution to this day. Most people that I've met, though, don't hate Jesus. Even people who hate the church don't generally hate Jesus. I've just found that to be generally true. Muslims don't hate Jesus. They think he was a prophet. They don't like the church. They don't hate Jesus. A lot of people are going to be like Pilate. Pilate's not sure what to do with this guy. He is unsure. And truth be told, a lot of the world out there is also unsure. A lot of the people who have not accepted Jesus also wouldn't say they hated Jesus. They're just not sure they believe all the stuff we say about Jesus. And then there's still Jesus who loves truth. I was tempted, I wondered, do we put Christians in there or the church in there? And I said no, and here's why. First of all, I don't do nearly as good a job of loving truth as Jesus does. I just don't. Also, Jesus is still alive to love truth for himself. So of all the three parties, everyone else is dead. Jesus is still alive. He's perfectly good at defending himself. So Jesus gets to continue to be the one who loves truth and exists today and testifies of himself. So, this is a long passage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit a few of the highlights. I'm not going to read every verse. We're going to play out this drama, and I'm going to try to help us hear most clearly from each of these three players. So each of these players are going to have something to say, and we're going to try to skim that out. We're going to start here with the prosecution, the Jewish leaders. This is their opening statement. It's so brilliant. Here it is. Pilate therefore went out to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered and said to him, "If this man were not an evildoer, we would not have delivered him up to you." Whoa, that's brilliant. Argument of the prosecution number one, because we said so. Why should we kill him? Well, we want you to. I mean, really, it's about that sophisticated. Because we said kill him. It's going to escalate from here. In this brilliant opening statement, the Jewish leaders argue convincingly that Jesus should die because they say so. And I'm going to cheat a little bit and draw from one of the other Gospels. I don't normally do this, but I think we need some context for a question that Pilate's about to ask. So I'm going to skip. John didn't record this, but Luke did. It's relevant to some of the things we need to understand. This is Luke 23:2. And they began to accuse him, saying, "We found this man misleading our nation and forbidding to pay taxes to Caesar, and saying that he himself is Christ, a king." I just want us to understand that we've got some blatant lies here. Jesus clearly in the teaching just in the last week said, "Pay unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's and pay unto God the things that are God's." They have purposefully misrepresented an exact thing that he said. That's a blatant lie. You could read about that in Mark 12:17 or Matthew 22:15 through 22. And in John chapter 6:15, we've been going through the book of John. If you've been with us, you may remember after Jesus fed the crowd with the loaves and fishes, they tried to make him king, and he resisted. He said, "No, thank you." Jesus is obviously not trying to set up an earthly kingdom. He has turned down opportunities to do so. They are willing to say whatever they think they need to say to get Rome to kill him. In response, Pilate asks a key question, a question that would definitely matter to him as the political leader of this area in response to their accusations. This is John 18:33. Pilate therefore entered the praetorium and summoned Jesus and said to them, "Are you the king of the Jews?" That, considering who Pilate is, the Roman representative of leadership in this area, is a reasonable question. Are you planning to make some sort of political uproar? This is your goal. Is this what you plan to? in which case I will be happy to kill you. Self-interest. Plenty of Jews taught against taxes every day. He ignores that. There's a popular complaint. If Pilate was going to kill every Jew that complained about taxes, he'd have to kill them all. And then the whole thing of he's been misleading the Jews, man, whatever. Why would he care about whether he misled Jews or not? He's the Roman leader. But this claim to be king, that could impact his world. And so that's the question he needs an answer to. Is Jesus king? That is still, to this day, a big question. If you're wondering who Jesus is, if you're trying to struggle with what Jesus should be in your life, it's one thing to think that Jesus was a nice guy in history, that, do you like Jesus? I guess I like Jesus, but should he be my king? Okay, that's a whole different ball game. Wait, you're saying that Jesus is supposed to be my king? Okay, that's a different question. It's a big question. The ramifications are huge if he is. Jesus' response is important. It's vitally important. We're in John 18, 36 through 37. Jesus, this is how he answered. My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would be fighting, that I might not be delivered up to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not of this realm. Pilate therefore said to him, so you are a king? And Jesus answered, you say correctly that I'm a king. For this I have come into this world to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. Jesus' answer is, I am the king of an unearthly kingdom. Apparently a kingdom unthreatened by his pending death. Yep, I'm the king, and I understand you're going to kill me. This does not seem to threaten my kingdom in any way. If you were threatening my physical kingdom and I was a king, do you not think I'd have people going to war right now? They'd be at the edges of they'd be trying to break me out. That's his answer. Jesus is on trial for his life. What kingdom would not fight for its king? Jesus is saying something that has no value if it is not true. What Jesus is saying won't get him free. He's not making some sort of clever argument that would shift him out of guilt. He's just stating the truth. It won't reduce his sentence. It won't buy him time. He's either bug nut crazy or he's saying the truth for the sake of truth alone, because no selfish motive can explain Jesus going and say, yes, I'm a king of a different realm that doesn't even exist on this world. That's not a sane thing to say. So either he's crazy or he cares so much about the truth and telling Pilate the truth that he's willing right here in this courtroom to now witness to the man who's his judge. In response, Pilate asks his second big question and makes his first proclamation. This is John 18:38. Pilate said to him, what is truth? That's an interesting question, isn't it? He says, the people who are of the truth will hear my voice. And Pilate's response is, what is truth? And when he had said this, he went out again to the Jews and said to them, I find no guilt in him. That's one no guilt statement. But Pilate's second big question was, what is truth? Pilate is asking the right questions. Are you king? What is truth? Sadly, he will end up answering this question with a faulty method. But for now, Pilate is making the first of his three proclamations. And then Pilate offers to release Jesus, but the priests demand a different prisoner. I'm going to read a longer section now. Keep in mind that this is what Rome is willing to do to a person who's just been proclaimed innocent. So keep this in mind. Pilate has said, I find no guilt in him. He offers to release the man. The Jews say, no, thank you. This is what Rome is willing to do to a man already proclaimed innocent. Let's read John 19, 1 through 6. Then Pilate therefore took Jesus and scourged him, the guy he just said was innocent. And the soldiers wove a crown of thorns and put him in a purple robe. And they began to come up to him and say, Hail, King of the Jews, and give him blows to the face. And Pilate came out again and said to them, Behold, I am bringing him out to you, that you may know that I find no guilt in him. 2. Jesus therefore came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, and Pilate said to them, Behold the man. I find it fascinating that before and after the complete physical abuse of Jesus, he says he's innocent. He's innocent. He's still innocent. We need to understand the cruelty and the barbarity of the Roman world that Jesus lives in, because what's going to happen in just a bit actually depends. We won't understand it if we don't understand how casually Romans abuse people. We need to really grasp how easily, quickly they'll beat you or kill you on a heartbeat. They don't care. Please keep this in mind, because something Pilate's going to do in just a bit is going to blow our mind with that context. In my opinion, I think Pilate is hoping to satisfy the anger of the Jews with humiliation. Perhaps the beaten face, the blood-soaked purple robe, the cruel crown, the mockery, perhaps all of that will satisfy their vengeance. That's just my opinion. I think Pilate's like, man, these people are mad. Maybe if I just beat the snot out of this guy, they'll go, okay, that was good enough, and they'll let him go home. That's just an opinion. I cannot prove that perspective. I'm just telling you what I kind of feel as I look at what I'm reading here. I don't know for sure. He's actually said, I find no guilt in him 3 times. Pilate's second and third proclamations were, I find no guilt in him. In what court does the judge proclaim 3 times not guilty, yet the defendant is still punished? Yet that is what will happen. We now come to the third argument of the prosecution. Let's read John 19, 7 and 8. The Jews answered him and said, we have a law, and by that law he ought to die, because he made himself out to be the Son of God. When Pilate heard this statement, he was the more afraid. That is a weird word. Pilate is in control. This is his house. This is his authority. These are his soldiers. In front of him is a guy who's been beaten to smithereens, is leaving a puddle of blood on the floor. His eyes are swelling shut, yet he's afraid. Why? What is Pilate afraid of? It's a bit of speculation here, to be honest. A fair answer would probably be complex. The Jews, as a people, were troublesome and prone to resistance and rebellion. Within the next 70 years, that resistance and rebellion will result in the entire country being ransacked and removed from the map of the world for over 2,000 years. That's what's going to happen, because Jews are problematic and difficult. Rome is going to smash them, and they won't be a country until, fairly recently. So fear of this people is fair. But I think the evidence of the next few verses points to also a different kind of fear that he's experiencing as well. Jesus is standing trial with death on the line, and he has looked Pilate in the eye, unflinching and unafraid, calmly and clearly stating that he was a king of an otherworldly kingdom. And now the Jews say that he claims to be the Son of God. And I think Pilate is grappling with the very intimidating question of whether or not he is this weird king from another realm. I think he's like, what if this is true? Because this guy isn't acting at all normal. Nothing about how this person is acting. I seem to be in control. I should be in control, yet this guy seems to be in charge. Like, how does he feel like he's in charge? I should be in charge. Yet somehow that isn't the way this is coming off. What happens next is really weird. Pilate asks his third question, maybe not as direct as it could have been, but I think he's probing for something. He's trying to figure all this out. Let's look at John 19:9. And he entered into the praetorium again and said to Jesus, where are you from? Jesus gave him no answer. I suppose this could just be a question about Jesus' life history, but in context of the rest of the conversations, I don't think so. I think he's asking a bigger question about the whole where are you from thing than just what town were you born in. They've been talking about an otherworldly kingdom. The Jews have stated his claim that he is the Son of God. Where are you from? Are you from Earth or somewhere else? Who are you? What are you? I think that may be the real question. What are you? And here's to back this up. I want you to really think about this over the next few verses. This is an unnatural chain of events, completely, absolutely unlikely to the point of bizarre. I've already explained the scene. Here we go. This is chapter 19, verses 10 through 12a. Pilate therefore said to me, you do not speak to me? Do you not know that I have authority to release you and I have the authority to crucify you? Jesus answered, "You would have no authority over me unless it had been given to you from above. For this reason, he who delivered me up to you has the greater sin." As a result of this, Pilate made efforts to release him. Okay, this bleeding, broken man standing in front of him says, "You have no authority over me." And Pilate's reaction is to go, "Yep, let me try to release you." That makes no sense. That's not how someone authority acts when you challenge their authority in front of their soldiers. When the guy standing in front of you says, "You have no authority over me except what my Father has given you," and then the guy says, "Yeah, let me fix that," that's not normal. This isn't explainable. This doesn't make sense. This isn't how real human beings interact with one another. Except these real human beings, and it is. A beaten, bloody man tells Pilate on his own court, on his own turf, that Pilate would have no authority over Jesus unless it had been given to him. And his response is to attempt to set him free. And the only explanation that makes any sense is that Pilate is afraid that Jesus is right. That's what makes sense. I mean, what would more and more Jew on a cross mean to Pilate? According to Roman records, this isn't the Bible, this is Roman records, General Vars, right before Jesus was born, crucified 2,000 Jews because he felt like it. Josephus, the historian, speaks of common executions. At least 2 other people were crucified with Jesus that day. Some people, as they read the account and try to put it all together, realize it might be even 5 or more people that were all crucified that same day. Rome had no trouble killing people for any reason at all. I'm telling you, Pilate had no concern about killing a Jew. He did it all the time. So why does he let this guy talk to him like that and then attempt to let him go? And to tell you the truth, in every other circumstance, I can imagine talking to the Roman judge that way would just put you on the menu, even if it hadn't been considered yet. If you talk to a Roman judge like that, maybe it would have been like, "Oh, we were just considering a scourging for today, but it looks like you want to be upgraded to crucifixion right this way." That's what you'd get for talking to a Roman judge that way. And then we get the next accusation of the Jews. This is John 19:12b and 15. I'm doing 2 different verses, but I think you'll get the picture. "But the Jews cried out, saying, 'If you release this man, you are no friend of Caesar, and everyone who makes himself out to be a king opposes Caesar.'" He's saying that a bunch of all of his friends. But look at 15. "And therefore cried out, 'Away with him, crucify him.' Pilate says, 'Shall I crucify your king?' The chief priests answered, 'We have no king but Caesar.'" That's blasphemy for a Jew. They're accusing Jesus of blasphemy, and they're doing it out loud. Here's the last argument of the hateful. Their 4th real statement was, "Hail Caesar." Their 4th argument was, "Hail Caesar." To understand how ridiculous this is, maybe you heard that Jesus drove money changers out of a temple once. Ever hear about that story? He loses his temple a little bit, knocks some things over, drives some people out. You know why there's money changers in a temple? It's because the Jews were so picky about the money that was given to God that it couldn't have Caesar's face on it. That was unacceptable. So you had to go to the money changer and get money that didn't have Caesar's face on it, change it out, pay an exchange rate. And then when you tithed, you could tithe appropriate money. That's how much they hated Caesar. Yeah. The same people who enforce those rules are willing to cry that they have no king but Caesar if that's what it takes to get rid of Jesus. They will abandon their principles. They will break their own rules. They will swear allegiance to anybody or anything to get rid of Jesus. Pilate, faced with this public accusation in front of his staff and his guards, caves in and decides to crucify Jesus. And make no mistake, it took the prosecution stooping to verbal threats to get the job done. It took the prosecution saying, "We will shame you in front of all the other Roman people here and tell all the other Romans we know that you're the guy who refused to deal with the upstart politician who is going to take your Caesar's throne. We will spread that rumor if you don't comply." And there's this slide. The arguments of the hateful, know that one? You had the right one before? Are desperate, illogical, and inconsistent. Because that's what hate does. Hate makes us need to win at any cost. Hate has no rationality. Hate has no reason. Hate seeks to destroy mindlessly. The people who hate Jesus today show the same characteristics, a willingness to use any tactic, no matter how emotional or manipulative, to destroy belief in Jesus, because that's what we do when we hate something. We attempt to destroy it at any means. Most people don't hate Jesus. Most people are like Pilate. Most people don't think Jesus is guilty. They just don't know what to do with his claims. Some may be curious, some may be confused, some may even be frightened. In the end, we have to decide what we're going to make with this choice. In the end, Pilate made his decision based on what he perceived to be best for him in the moment. He decided that the earthly cost was too high. He couldn't put together what he was witnessing. The facts in this man's presence told him that the prosecution was lying and that the man was telling the truth. That's what Pilate's actions say all the way up to the end, right until he decides that the price of being labeled a traitor to Caesar is too high. I think this happens in the lives of people exploring Christ, and then they find out that their friends are going to abandon them and their family is going to ridicule them or whatever, and they wonder if the price is going to be too high. Maybe you're experiencing a price right now for your belief. I don't know. But that's a truth. The sad thing for Caesar is that his choice had no bearing on what's actually true. You see, we can make decisions based on what's good for us, but when we make decisions that way, that doesn't change what is or is not true. Whether Jesus is convenient has nothing to do with whether or not he's telling the truth. Jesus claimed, "I am the king of an unearthly kingdom, and all other authority is granted by God." His message hasn't changed. And that has serious repercussions. Once Jesus stood before Pilate and was judged. Now Pilate must stand before Jesus and be judged. Every person alive gets to make a decision about Jesus, and then later Jesus gets to make a decision about them. That's how this works. That fact cannot be changed. No matter what method we choose to use to decide what to do with Jesus, none of that changes who he is or what he has the right to do. And you can decide now. You do not need me to make a decision for Christ right now. You don't need me. I'm available. I'd be happy to help. I'm not required. We all have to decide. There is no guilt in Jesus. He is not guilty. Pilate didn't find any because there wasn't any to find. He is who he said he was. I'm not asking whether you like the church or even whether you like me. I'm asking you to admit the truth to the questions we all have. Is he king? What is truth? And where is he from? The same questions that Pilate had, we need the answers to. And the answers to those questions can set us free. My last statement and question challenge to everybody else is this. Are we ready to answer those questions? Are we ready to answer those questions to the people we meet in the world? The questions of, is he king? What is truth? Where is he from? Are we ready to answer those questions directly to people who need the answer so they can judge for themselves what they're going to do with the church, with the truth of Jesus? Let's pray.
You've been listening to Oasis by the Sea. Thank you so much for joining us today. May God richly bless you until we see you next week at the Oasis.